On this episode of Star Trek Universe, we're slapping on the old black socks and red training tights to practice a few friendly throws with Star Trek 108, Charlie X, right after these words from our mystery sponsors. Welcome into Star Trek Universe. I am David C. Roberson. Who are you again?
I am Effie Ophelders, and I'm pretty sure I'm just here to, value that's not a word. That's not the word I'm looking for. This is a great start. I do know what my name is, and that's it's as good as a start as I could have hoped for. Meltdown.
If he had a meltdown, we know not what she'll do.
Oh, Lord. Yeah. No. I am here just to validate the experience of everyone else who has also been a teenage boy at one point. It's not one of my proudest life eras, but, I was there too. I
Sure.
can relate to the complete and utter lack of control over your testosterone.
Yeah, so...
This makes me feel better in some ways, this episode. I did,
Yeah.
I wasn't that bad.
I've seen this episode several times. This is your first time seeing it.
Indeed. I should probably have started off with the concept of the show. Yes, I have never seen any Star Trek except for, the episodes we've covered already. So
Right.
I'm a newbie.
Yeah, I've seen this so many times. I am very interested to see what your take is on this episode. I don't want to tell you what I think of the episode until I know what you think of the episode, because now we're getting into a territory where, they have not been my favorite episodes so far, a lot of them, and I don't know. I'm kind of starting to feel like I want to know what you think before. I don't want to color your
right.
your
You don't want
feelings.
to sour my exactly.
Yeah.
Well, you've already spoiled that. You've seen it a bunch of times, but this one was a bit up and down. I feel there were some points where it was like, oh yeah, we're keeping up with the Spock and Uhura tension, where it's like, oh yeah, there's some, and there's a lot of just weird sci-fi stuff of the powers of Charlie that just are expressed in various weird ways that are delightful, but also I feel like overall there is just a bunch of tension of how do we deal with this kid that is essentially uncontrollable because of limitless powers, where I feel like the motivations and the actual horror of him wanting to not return to the people that saved him because they are incapable of human connection, like that isolation, that pure loneliness would have been really interesting to delve in just a bit more, because now it's just the him yelling before he gets taken away, where it's like, oh fuck, he's a prisoner, he's got a shit life, which doesn't excuse anything, but there is an interesting core there where I'm like, I wanted more of that,
Right.
where I feel like, there was something, because we spent so much time on the intrigue of like, what is he capable of? He's capable of a lot. And he's just really going bonkers because he doesn't understand how to behave and comport himself in any sort of society light on board this ship, which is interesting in and of itself, of course, but it does end up in that place of like, he is desperate for any sort of affection because he can't get anywhere he's from, and yet that tragedy of being completely incapable of being around other people because he has no self-restraint in terms of just lashing out at people and doing God knows what with them. I'm very glad that people were apparently on board some other ship and could be beamed back. Presumably the guy in the who laughed at him in the fight scene as well. We don't see that, but we'll assume. It's all about the Omen. Really, we're just happy the Omen's back.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very much that zany sort of fun of like, okay, what is the concept this episode? And I really enjoy that, but they're not always delving into like the depths of this is of the sci-fi concept where I'm like, there's no it's we're not getting a what I've heard referred to as like a Twilight Zone or Black Mirror type oh fuck, this is way more weird or creepy than I was expecting or thinking, or there's not as much of a twist there, and this twist is very short in that sense, where it's like, oh, now we've uncovered the basic. We're always working backwards to the beginning of like, oh, this is why he was doing that, and or what the monster was doing, and I enjoy that for what it is, but it isn't yet on the level where I'm like, this is utterly brilliant. This is not yet one of those episodes, I feel.
Okay.
So it's just, you know, I have no idea how US grading systems work, so I won't put a letter grade on it. But it's a solid episode. It was fun. It was also weird, of course, because there is that oh, he's a teenager. You got to learn how to be a man. You know, there's a lot of that, and a lot of Yeoman Rand being very gracious in trying to explain to him that it's not okay to slap a woman on the you know.
Yeah, that was my favorite part, is when he slapped the girl in the butt. You know?
Yeah, of course. That's why it's one of your favorites, I'm sure. It's like, yes, harassment. It's the natural thing to do. You see the first woman you've ever seen, you fall in love with her, and you slap her on the ass, because that's instinctively what you are taught to. No. Yeah, that does make for an interesting matter, because it is very much why would you think that is acceptable or normal behavior? Like the impulse of wanting to do it doesn't seem natural to me, when it is very much a societal thing and very much related to power dynamics, and in reality a thing that men largely do to intimidate rather than actually instigate some romantic entanglement. That's just not.
I am joking when I say that was like my favorite part of the show.
I get that.
But Just to make it clear.
Sometimes not serious.
But you'll remember that the reason he did it is because he saw two crewmen do that. He saw one crewman did it to another, and he was like, oh, this is how people interact. This is like how people who like each other interact. And didn't realize that there was a difference between a man doing it to a woman.
Gender. Yeah. And, no, that's true. That was a quick throwaway thing, and I admit I might have forgotten about that, just because I tend to pay more attention to dialogue when I'm like, oh, we're still walking through the corridors. There's more people, and he's just wandering, and at that point I'm usually like, okay, get to it. but it didn't matter. Yeah.
So for anyone who still doesn't know which episode we're talking about, the Enterprise takes 17-year-old Charlie Evans aboard for transport after he spent 14 years alone on a deserted planet. But his inability to reintegrate with his fellow humans is compounded by his very unhuman powers. That was actually a pretty good synopsis.
Yeah.
You know what? I think the whole time I'm watching this episode, and maybe for the first time ever, I thought, I wish, like, once it got to the end or about midpoint, when Kirk actually saw what he was capable of, making Sam disappear in the training gym or whatever, I wanted
Kirk. He had
a
name. Good to know.
Yeah, I wanted Kirk
I'd
to
forgotten.
His name is Sam Ellis, but
now I know.
I really wanted Kirk to like pull Charlie aside and be like, you know, my best friend got powers like these, and I buried him under a rock.
Fair enough.
His name was Gary.
Yeah. No. Oh Lord.
And to be fair, he was more powerful than you. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, we've quickly forgotten about that person. That is not, great friend, fun while it lasted. We have more episodes to get to.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, like, is that also, because I know we've seen it, so it's earlier on in production order, but had it aired yet? Or were they just trying to keep it episodic?
I don't know. I don't remember.
That's fair.
I mean, I could probably find out really quickly.
I'm sure I could too. That's what, the memory alpha is for, but...
Yeah, let's see. So it aired for the first time it aired September 15th, 1966. This one did. Mm-hmm. And so what was that? September 15th?
Yeah.
And yeah, we're going by production order, so it makes it difficult to keep up with when they actually air
stuff.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And Where No Man Has Gone Before came out the next week, September 22nd.
So it's weird either way, because just at that point they would have been like, well, what did we do to the last guy? Oh no, we got saved by the Deus Ex Machina green guy. Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, I actually do. I like this episode. It's not one of my favorites, but it's not one of my least favorites. It's like right in the middle for me.
I get that.
And this episode always makes me think of the old Twilight Zone episode, It's a Good Life, with Bill Mooney.
You'll have to fill me in.
Oh, really? God.
Yeah, no, like I know the expression Twilight Zone. I do not know the actual show. So I have not gone back and watched all of that.
The basic idea of that episode was there's like a little town, the entire world disappeared one day, and only this little town is left, and is sort of this idyllic little place, but there's a monster who lives there. And because of the monster, everyone there has to say happy things and think happy thoughts. And the monster is a little boy. And if you piss him off, he sends you away to what he refers to as the cornfields.
That's ominous somehow. That's just, you don't want to go there.
Terrifying. And it's such a good episode.
Yeah.
Like he turns one dude into a Jack-in-the-Box. Like it's just like a dude's head on a spring. And they do that great thing that they do in like old shows where they don't have the budget. They basically just like turn it, you see him like look at him. And then we just, so you hear someone scream, the guy's wife screams, and then you just see like the shadow of the Jack-in-the-Box.
Right, of course.
It's fantastic. And they're like, send him away, Charlie. Send him away to the cornfield. Oh my God. Like, but that's what this always reminds me of.
Yeah, that makes sense. It is very much we're at the mercy of someone who is not fully grown enough to be reasoned with. Yeah. To a large extent. Which feels weird because he's supposed to be like, he looks a bit older than 14, but he was 3.
He's supposed to be 17,
right? He's supposed to be 17. Yeah. I was like, I thought he was 17, but you said 14 in the, I remembered. He was 3 at the time of the crash. And that feels like there should be somewhat more emotional control, but of course you've been abandoned on a planet that has, weird aliens that will not really comfort you in any way. But yeah, I don't know, the whole concept of I want people to like me. I would think you'd get better at people pleasing and less mad when you fuck up.
Yeah, but he doesn't have to. That's the whole thing.
That's right.
Like,
yeah.
He's like been around humans.
There's no consequences.
A few weeks or a week or so, maybe, from the Antares picking him up on Thesis, and he essentially just like bullied them and terrified them into like foisting him upon the Enterprise as soon as possible. Like, Jesus God, get him onto another ship.
Yep.
And then kills him when they try to like warn Kirk.
Yeah.
And I love like the little cracks in Charlie's exterior, like when the Antares blows up and they don't even know why, and he's just like, it wasn't very well constructed. What? What?
It seemed like a poorly made ship. You know, it happens. There
was a panel. It was going to blow anyway, so I just went ahead and blew it. Just removed it.
Yeah. That was indeed extra dark, where he was like, they would have blown up eventually, so I just expedited that part without giving them a chance to repair. Like, Jesus. So there is a complete disregard for life, which in a way, he's never had any life to be considerate of course. But it is interesting to me where to then lead to the conclusion of, you would think of us as ants because you're powerful or something. Like, there is that it's a cliche for a reason, of course, but I it's hard to empathize with. You're very much like, oh, you've had a tragic upbringing, but you would think that treating people nicely would work better, and you'd figure that out in a couple of weeks. They wound up doing a sort of a fan-made movie that's really pretty interesting, and a lot of people from Star Trek came back for it, like a lot of actors and stuff. It was a movie called like Gods and Men or something, and the primary protagonist was a very old Charlie.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But that's for much, much later if you feel like it.
Yeah. No, I'm sure.
It wasn't an official production, but it was cool because a lot of people
that actual people participated. That's dope.
There's one thing that one of the great quotes from this episode is something that me and my wife reference a whole lot, where like Kirk's trying to explain to him why he can't slap a woman on the ass, and he's like, there are things you can do with a woman. My wife and I are always like, there are things you can do with diced tomatoes. Just always bringing that into our lives.
Fair. It was a very poor explanation of why it was wrong. But,
Yeah, he's like, well, there's no right way to hit a woman. And I'm like, can we get like a few more months with Charlie and then be like, by the way, sometimes it is okay. We don't want to kink shame.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to say, like, what if it works out and she's really into that? Like,
yeah. There's that. There's a lot that I liked here where like Charlie is like, is that a girl? And Kirk's like, that's a girl. Like, yeah, man.
Yeah. When later it becomes very important that she's not a girl, she's a woman. You're way too young. This is not okay.
Yeah.
Which is much more of an issue than, the other way around when there's an age gap in terms of younger woman. Like, let's not think too hard on that. It was the 60s, but
yeah. But also, like,
she's too much woman for you. That's the conclusion, basically.
They did bring it up where she was just like, I thought you might like to spend time with a girl your age.
Yeah.
And he turned her into like a space reptile.
Yeah, not immediately, but eventually.
Yeah, he's like, she's not you. She's not you.
Yeah, I'm like, oh god, they look the exact same. She's just younger. You don't know anything about either of them. Please, right. God, just, yeah.
But, that's like that, because I feel like he's mentally younger than 17.
Yeah.
I mean, we've literally got a 17-year-old serving in Starfleet that she introduced him to. But he's got this like 12-year-old mentality because he's telling Rand, if I had the whole universe, I'd give it to you. When I see you, I feel like I'm hungry all over. Like,
yeah, that's just like no one has ever explained to you what lust is and that it may be a different thing from actual affection. Maybe
not even lust, but just sheer infatuation, which is, I would say, a little more dangerous in some ways.
Yeah, no, it is the conflation of feeling something, not knowing what it is, and assuming this is love. This is what it's supposed to be, and turning into this obsessive response where it's none of it is healthy.
But I also loved like how much we got to see Kirk trying to like shun the responsibility of fatherhood. Like he's like, nope, McCoy, you're gonna teach him about this shit. I want no part of it.
Yeah, you're an MD. I am just the captain. I happen to be there.
But like Charlie is totally seeing Kirk as a father figure anyway, because like when he tells the galley chef, like, if we have to have, it's Thanksgiving today, if we have to have meatloaf, I want it to at least taste like turkey. Yeah. And Charlie goes out of his way to make sure they are turkeys.
Yeah. Like, that was indeed like, oh, you're trying to impress this man.
Yeah. I like all of Kirk and Charlie's interactions. Like Kirk saying, there are a million things in this universe you can have, and there are a million things you can't. And it's no fun facing that, but that's the way things are.
And it's really hard to convince someone of that who's had no socialization and no life for that long. But it is very true. It is very much like, oh yeah, you've never had a natural disappointment in your life at a normal age, so you're throwing a tantrum now.
Yeah. I think it winds up being, like, oddly, it winds up being a really strong episode because of how tragic Charlie is. Like, you wind up, you're like, he's a little dick. He's a little, Joe Rogan fan or some shit. But but he's just a kid who's never, like, experienced anything. And then at the end of the day, like, he's begging them, please don't let them take me. I can't touch them.
Because I'll never experience anything ever again. Yeah.
Yeah. Is shocking and horrific and sad. And everyone on the bridge, I feel like, even though he was just manipulating them and controlling them, they all look appropriately horrified by what just happened.
Yeah, they're like, okay, we have no choice, but also this feels bad.
Yeah, like what are they gonna do?
Yeah, they're not going to say to the Thasians, "Oh no, let's keep him around. We'll fix it eventually." Like, no, it's not going to work out well.
Yeah, I mean they tried, but then he was just like, growing up eating so much. I'm not a man, and I can do anything.
Yeah.
Little power hungry bastard.
That complete unwillingness to learn anything. He doesn't want to assimilate. He just wants them to be toys in his playset where he gets out of it what he needs and doesn't really care about other people's feelings, and that's never gonna work. There is an antisocial fucked upness there.
But it's not just the Enterprise. Like he's desperately trying to get to that colony or whatever it was. I don't remember what it is now.
Yeah. He wants more and more
people.
Yeah. There's
So,
a freedom to that, I suppose. But yeah, I really appreciated that darkness at the end where it's like, oh yeah, no, he is doomed to be stuck in that sort of state of non-development forever, because there is no possibility to really interact with anyone else like him, and the intangible ghost aliens will just be around, but what does that help him?
Mm-hmm.
You won't completely die of utter loneliness and insanity because you can't talk. Like, you can talk to them, but it's never going to be fun.
Yeah.
You're never going to feel cared for if they are literally incapable of caring for you, besides, seeing ethically that they need to give him powers for him to survive.
Mm-hmm. So, like, how did you feel about this episode's treatment of the female characters, specifically Rand?
Yeah, I was slightly conflicted. Like, I get that I get that they needed that to like play into the teenager thing, where it's like, he's an adolescent, he doesn't know to treat anyone with respect, but at the same time, yeah, you're portraying the same dynamic of like, oh yeah, men naturally want to go after what they want, and you show me how to love, like what, that's not love, that whole line where it's like but I was very glad that Rand just fucking shoves him and doesn't want anything to do with it. She's very clear about her boundaries, and the actual men in the crew stick up for her. So I appreciated that. I'm not quite sure why she needed to be in her sort of pink nightgown for some of it, but give the costume designers a raise.
Yeah, I wondered about that. I was like,
I was like, yeah, this feels unnecessary, but then again, the regular skirts are more revealing than the long gown she was wearing, so
yeah,
can't complain too much. Like, there was a balance, and you're watching something from a different era, so there is a perspective where I was like, where I was sort of, this feels very, especially when it is that hard to explain that you shouldn't assault a woman in a sexual manner. Like, maybe don't try to, and then generalizing it to, it's about the violence aspect, not about the sexual thing. Let's not talk about sex here. It's the 60s. But I mostly blame that. Like, I'm more annoyed then by the choices of like, oh, this is the teenage boy, more than like, I'm not necessarily gonna see that as objectifying Rand in this case, because she's literally just there to be, no, don't fucking do that. And in that way, I feel like it could have been handled much worse.
Yeah.
Like, at least there was some sort of, no, we're a respectable society and we don't do that. And you should let go if the woman is not into you. Maybe just get over yourself. And it is about two people's feelings and not just about what you want to bone. So there was, for its time, like, good shit in there. But I'm like, yeah. If he was willing to learn, he could have learned something.
Yeah. I have a thought about why she was in her like little nightgown, and I feel like that was her final confrontation with Charlie before he noped her away. And I think that
private quarters.
Had she been in a Starfleet uniform, she would not have felt as vulnerable.
That also makes sense, yeah, because it is very much, oh, dude, you're coming in without knocking. I'm in my own quarters. Yeah. I am half undressed, like, trying to do my own thing. Like, it very much feels in that way of like, I just got out the shower, I'm barely wearing a towel, that type of vibe, where it is very much you are not supposed to be here and you're not listening to me, which is threatening immediately.
Mm-hmm. What did you think of the lighting when he's like on the bridge, or he's in I can't remember if it was like sick bay, but there was like these shots where all of a sudden like Charlie was very dark except for his eyes.
Yeah. But they kind of did the same thing for Kirk. It was that sort of stare down it was a very sudden Western feel of like, okay, we're in a shootout. And that it was fun. It did immediately strike me where it was like, okay, we're doing that, and there is a sort of, it does tie together neatly with the aspect of, okay, we're still trying to placate his sense of authority, his respect for Kirk, and like it is very much a stare down in that sense of who's gonna budge, because there's no real reason for him to back down, but we're still getting him to, sort of listen to the commanding officer, and that's, which in and of itself is probably also interesting, that there would be an innate sort of respect for a father figure ingrained in a teenage boy who has no socialization with any such figures in his life.
Yeah.
So, but that is the two-edged sword of he wants to please. He is still very much looking to be liked. He's just very quick to give up on that when it doesn't work out, and he's like, "You don't like me? Well, I guess I hate you too." Is very much the 10-year-old mentality of
he's like, "I will take over your ship, and I will go to a new place and start with new people and see if I can do it there." And
just exactly.
It's but yeah, no, I love, one of the things I love about the original series is that they are willing to change the lighting of the scene for the art of it and to express something, some like showdown or some mentality. And and even when they're not doing that, like there still is in a lot of ways very cinematic lighting on the show. And the reason I love that so much is because Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise don't do it nearly as much. They have very even TV lighting in a lot of ways. DS9 does it more than the others, but and Enterprise is actually pretty good about it, so, from time to time. But I feel like they use that, they're much more like, no, this is the lighting we set up for the scene, and this is how it's going to work. And if we change it, it's going to look weird. And part of that is like, yes, modern audiences will go, that's hokey, but
But there is a purpose to it, and I get that, especially in this era when there wasn't a lot of color TV yet.
Yeah,
you're not watching it and being like, oh well, that doesn't look natural. You're not getting natural yet. You're getting grainy black and white shit, and that's gonna look different. And if you can use that to still portray a feeling, like get across something else you want to say with that scene. Yeah, that's to be applauded. I get that. There is, I appreciate that too, where there is an artistry in how they compose the shots more than just, well, they're walking down this another hallway that looks the same. There's something happening there.
It makes me feel almost like it's almost like anime or something from time to time. But yeah, I really enjoy that about the original series, and they were very much touting, we have color TV shows, like for all the new color TVs that are coming out. And oh my Lord, look at this. Would it surprise you to learn that this episode was written by a woman?
Slightly, in the sense that I didn't know and didn't check. So yeah, it surprised me. I didn't know they let women into the writer's room at that time. No, it does make some sense, and like we've discussed before, there is just a lot of, within dominant culture, it's not restricted to one gender to have a specific perspective on gender relations. So it, like anything that would not, completely adhere to feminist tastes nowadays, it doesn't have to come from a man necessarily. But there is, of course, it does explain some of the perspective on this is what, not quite grown men are like. There is it makes sense to have a certain experience in life that is reflected in what if you give men even more power and they just start seeing you as toys to a further extent, and then having the actual showcasing the ability of the woman to fight back at very least, even if she sort of loses, but not in the way you hate seeing even more, just in the poof way where, you know, I'm happier to see that happen and then have her returned at the end of the episode because she's kind of an important character, than an actual, you know, another sexual violence scene that was weird enough the first time.
Mm-hmm.
But also, what I did notice in the credits was that it was a Roddenberry story. So in that sense, like, yeah, it wasn't fully conceived of by the female writer.
Well, Roddenberry had written a 1-sentence synopsis of the episode, and
oh Jesus. Okay, story credits don't mean shit.
And it was called "The Day Charlie Became God."
Well, that's a worse title.
Yeah,
it's a bit long. It's a bit on the nose too. Like I don't know why the X is there in the title actually. So
DC Fontana, otherwise known as DC Fontana, she has confirmed yes, this was based on that story idea, and she developed the story. She wrote the teleplay, and Roddenberry received the credit, of course. But she worked as a writer for a few television shows before Star Trek. Then she worked very briefly as Gene Roddenberry's secretary before she became a writer on the show.
That's a better gig, yeah.
This is the first episode she penned for Star Trek. Mm-hmm. And she wrote a lot of Star Trek. She's written Star Trek novels. She has written, she's also done other episodes, of course. And she's like the only writer who has done like, so she worked on Star Trek, the original series, the animated series, The Next Generation, and Deep Space Nine. And Deep Space Nine was her favorite Star Trek spinoff.
No.
So, I think it's really cool. And, she's one of the, she's like the Bill Finger of Star Trek in a lot of ways.
Yeah, she stuck around and did a lot more than you like. That's a name I'll keep an eye out for now. That's good to know.
Interesting thing about Robert Walker, the guy that played Charlie, Grace Lee Whitney, who played Rand, mentioned in her autobiography. She said that Robert Walker was completely avoided the cast, trying to stay alone and in character. He explained to us when he arrived to the set that he wanted to remain alien and apart from us, and it worked. You could see it in his performance, a subtle yet persistent air of estrangement from the Enterprise crew, and indeed from the rest of humanity. His careful effort to stay in character added a convincing dimension to his performance. It's impossible to imagine anyone else in the role. I agree. I think he did a really fantastic job.
Yeah, I get that. He was really, really good. He had that creepy vibe but that makes total sense. Like, if you don't even know the actors, you don't have to pretend. You're just in a room with strangers and very uncomfortable. And like, he was continuously off, and that's exactly what it calls for. So it was very nice to see him perform. Yeah,
he did a fantastic job of, like, I took specific note watching this episode of how, like, in scenes he would be so, like, innocent and childlike and so shy and just slightly insecure. Just you would see it just like dancing, like all the micro expressions on his face. You could just see him just like going through all these like emotions.
What do I do? How do I get into this situation? How do I?
And then I did it wrong. Even the son of a bitch.
Thing, yeah. Because even like everything is playing pretend. Like even any type of confidence, like during the card tricks, is so clearly like, oh, let me try something and see if this works to get people to like me. And there is that truly just there's such an uncomfortable undertone to everything he does.
Yeah, and Kirk said it best. He's a boy in a man's body trying to be an adult with the adolescence in him getting in the way. I love the concept. Not one of my favorite executions of the original series, but you know, a good mid-good episode. Like,
right, yeah.
Yeah, like I still like look back fondly on this episode and go, ugh, yeah, that was some creepy shit. Like even
there is you just become uneasy from the entire situation because there is nothing that goes well. It's just immediately off and it's great.
Even the scene where he's like, stop laughing at me, and then like he walks on and the woman walks out and she has no face. Like, I know it's like very 60s effects, but it's still creepy as shit. It looks good
absolutely
enough.
Like you can tell, but that's just because our TVs got too good. It's like the concept of oh, my face is gone is always going to be unsettling, and there is just the whims that he has. It's very just nothing needs to actually really happen for him to just snap and do that to you. And that's just. It's scary because it's unpredictable in a way that's not insane or like it's just immature. It's just how do you reason with someone who doesn't quite get any of the same body of knowledge you have from life? There's no common ground to work off from. Like, it's just it's a creepy face to stare into.
Would you consider this your favorite episode of the show up to this point?
Oh goodness,
I know I didn't tell you I was going to say ask this.
no, I'm instantly like, what did I see before? Shit. The
cage where no man has gone before, the Corbomite maneuver, Mud's women,
within,
the enemy within.
Dang it. It's hard to pick favorites, man.
I know. I'm just curious.
Especially when I've seen like literally 10 of them, 9 of them. Oh, I don't know. Cause there was a playfulness to the pilot that I really enjoyed. There was,
up to this point, my favorite is still I feel like, Where No Man Has Gone Before, the second pilot.
Yeah. What was the plot again? Dang it.
That's Gary Mitchell. Yes, Gary Mitchell becoming God.
Right. Yeah. I do really like that one. I feel like, we started off pretty damn strong, and then there's just a bunch of filler. And some are better than others, but this isn't a favorite, I don't think. It's not top of the list. It's like you said, it's probably somewhere in the middle. It's good, but it's not one where I'm like, whoa, that was a. I'm always I prefer writing as you know, like a little execution is worth a lot, but if it's a solid concept executed well, if it's like written tightly, I am much more easily sold than this was sort of an episode, but it was acted really well. I'll go for that, less often. But I do feel like the first couple where we had a.
The first really two pilots were so good. Yeah, those are so good.
I really like the pilots. It's hard to have topped that already, I feel.
Yeah, to me it's like.
But at the same time, I am also looking at the titles and being like, oh, which one was which? I'll get around to that.
Fair enough. To
I'll
me,
be prepared next time.
To me, it's like Where No Man Has Gone Before, the Corbomite maneuver, in the cage. Those are my top 3 so far of where we are.
Yeah. Okay. Well, my instincts are pretty correct. I have the same sort of vibe of like, oh, I remember those better than some of the other ones where I was like, oh, it was fine, but it wasn't anything too out there or as original or as well executed. So I agree. Yeah.
All right. Cool. I think that wraps it for this episode. Do you have anything else?
I'd say so. No, not really. I'm just very glad not to be stuck in adolescence anymore. It's wonderful being an adult human.
Yeah, I can feel that. Like, I hated being a teenager.
Oh, of course. And I have extra reasons on top of that. I'm also very glad to just generally be rid of testosterone, but boy, the teenage years. Oof. Yeah, it's a rough time.
Indeed.
Go hug a teenage boy if you're around and they need it,
But not if you're a woman.
Ask for consent, but no, not if you're a woman. Be wise. Your own safety comes first. All that.
I feel hungry inside all the time, all over.
Yeah, no. Go be a father figure to some of them. They need it, I guess.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next time. If you have thoughts on our reviews or watching along with us on this original series, rewatch, first watch, please drop us a line, StarTrekUcast@gmail.com. Until next time, Joel on True, live long and prosper. And what is it for you, Effie?
Eat a dick, I think.
Eat a dick.
Right?
That's it. That's
the one I remembered.
She remembered. So long, chums.
Thank Thank you for listening to the Star Trek Universe Podcast, a Stranded Panda production. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Roberson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv for his web videos. If you'd like to hear more from Matthew Carroll, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or listen to his music. Just search for Matthew Carroll anywhere you get music.